In this video, we will discuss John Milton's poem When I Consider How My Light is Spent. The poem When I Consider How My Light is Spent is a Petrarchan sonnet. Petrarchan sonnets are often argumentative poems. Poets use the form to test ideas and quarrel with themselves. This poem's structure follows a distinct rhyme scheme of ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. It maintains the characteristic iambic pentameter. The poem is divided into two sections, an octave encompassing the initial 8 lines and a sestet encompassing the subsequent 6 lines. The poem begins with the speaker reflecting upon how he has spent the years of his life, symbolized as his light. This light serves as both a metaphor for life and a literal representation of Milton's days when he could see. The second line delves deeper, revealing that before even reaching the midpoint of his life, he is thrust into a world that is dark and wide. This alludes to Milton's own experience of losing his sight at the age of 42. Prior to this, he had the opportunity to employ his writing skills, his talents in service to Oliver Cromwell. He had achieved significant success, likely reaching the pinnacle of what a writer in England could aspire to. However, his most significant works would be composed during his period of blindness. Milton's talent is the crux of his existence, his profound skills with words and his deep love for writing. It is from this talent his entire livelihood and sense of self-worth transpire. Understanding the significance of this word talent is crucial in understanding these lines. As a Puritan, Milton brings in a lot of biblical allusions in his poems. Here he alludes to the parable of talents from Matthew chapter 25. By referencing this parable, Milton links the loss of his ability to read and write to the servant in the biblical story who, out of fear, buries the money entrusted to him by God in the desert, rather than wisely investing it. For Milton, his involuntary concealment of his talents due to his blindness equates to a form of death. In the next line, Milton expresses his devotion to God. He says that despite his soul being strongly inclined to serve God and present his accounts through writing, his talents remain concealed. The term account carries a dual meaning here, signifying both his written records and financial resources, once again echoing the connection to the parable of talents. Milton yearns to do right by God and serve Him faithfully. He endeavors to exhaust all efforts to speak on behalf of God, lest upon his return God reproaches him. Milton also fears divine admonishment for not fully leveraging the gifts bestowed upon him by God. As he concludes the sentence that he initiated at the beginning of the poem with the word when, he poses a poignant question. Does God demand labor from those devoid of light? He seeks to understand whether, in the face of his own blindness preventing him from continuing his literary endeavors, God still expects him to toil and work. Patience emerges as a personified entity in the subsequent line, serving as a soothing force to quell any murmurs of doubt or questioning that may rise within the speaker. Patience steps in to respond to the internal inquiry posed by the speaker, and the remainder of the poem encapsulates this response. Patience elucidates that God does not demand special offerings or remarkable accomplishments from humankind, such as Milton's profound writings. Instead, God's utmost affection is bestowed upon those who willingly embrace and bear His gentle yoke. This phrase holds intricate symbolism. Drawing an analogy to a yoke, a wooden frame placed around the neck and shoulders of plowing animals, guiding them as they traverse the fields. Those who surrender their lives to God, acknowledging His sovereignty over their destinies, are the ones who are most dearly loved. This is the sense of what God truly requires, not lavish gifts or burdensome toil. Patience draws a comparison between God and a majestic king, depicting his realm as regal and resplendent. In this realm, the king, God, possesses an abundance of subjects with countless individuals at his command. They are akin to limitless resources at his disposal. These subjects have the ability to swiftly traverse across land and ocean, moving with haste without pausing for rest. As the poem reaches its conclusion, it provides an answer to the unasked question lingering within the speaker. It affirms that even those who, like Milton, are unable to traverse swiftly over land and ocean, still possess the capacity to serve God faithfully. The poem asserts that one's worth and ability to serve God are not contingent upon physical mobility or the ability to engage in rapid endeavors. Rather, it is the devotion of one's heart and the surrender of one's will to God that truly matter in his eyes. In this poem, Milton delves into profound reflections on blindness, a topic of personal significance as he himself lost his sight in the mid 1650s. As a writer and translator, Milton's reliance on his vision added to the significance of his contemplation. However, the focus of the poem transcends practical challenges and delves into the spiritual implications associated with blindness. The speaker, who identifies strongly with Milton, believes that their talent as a writer should be employed in service to God. Yet, their blindness renders this impossible. Implicitly, this raises questions about the expectations God places on individuals. However, by the sonnet's conclusion, any tension is resolved as the speaker asserts that true devotion to God is best manifested through faith rather than mere labor. In the initial octave of the poem, the speaker laments the loss of sight, perceiving it as a barrier to fulfilling the work they had planned and the work expected by God. Alluding to the parable of the talents from the book of Matthew, the speaker argues that when God grants someone a skill or ability, it is expected that they will utilize it effectively. Failure to do so may result in divine displeasure. However, the speaker's blindness renders the pursuit of literary endeavors impossible, even though the intention behind such work was to bring glory to God. Beneath the surface of the poem's first 8 lines lies a deep sense of frustration accompanied by a questioning of God's fairness. For Milton, a devout Puritan, this perspective holds potential blasphemy for several reasons. The speaker risks assuming they possess superior knowledge to that of God, an omniscient being. Moreover, the notion that pleasing God requires diligent labor aligns more closely with Catholicism, a faith Milton strongly opposed and regularly critiqued throughout his career. As the speaker articulates their frustrations with God, they veer into dangerous territory, verging on what the remainder of the poem will ultimately address and rectify. Following the speaker's expression of frustration and contentious dialogue with God, a new voice emerges within the poem, referred to as patience by the speaker. The allegorical figure presents two arguments. Firstly, it emphasizes that God does not demand human toil or material offerings. Rather, true salvation is secured through obedience to God. This obedience is described as mild and importantly adaptable. It takes different forms from different individuals. While some may undertake great endeavors traversing over land and ocean, others may find fulfillment in patiently waiting for God's commands. Both approaches active and contemplative and can be considered acts of service. The poem conveys that performing great works is indeed acceptable to Milton's conception of God, but it is not the sole means of pleasing Him. Equally valid is the act of patiently awaiting God's guidance, potentially indefinitely. The specific action itself holds less significance compared to the manner in which it is performed, a reflection of one's faith in God and submission to His divine will.